you like to start us off?
Hey, Brian, thanks for doing this.
Patrick.
Just kind of your reaction to this game. Obviously, you played in Columbus for a long time and, played in World Cup qualifiers in Columbus, obviously a different stadium, but just a reaction to having it back and being in Columbus for another big game.
Yeah, it's always great to come to Columbus, whether you're doing it personally or coming for qualifiers. So it's a decision that we took very, very seriously, and knowing the history that Columbus has, the support that we always get, certainly weighed heavily on the decision. And we're excited to have a very important qualifier in a game against Costa Rica, hosted by Columbus.
And I think the big, I don't know if it's an elephant in the room, but the fact that it's not US-Mexico, and that game's going to Cincinnati. I know fans here were disappointed to hear that. The thinking behind moving that game out of Columbus after it had been here for so long.
It's not really, we didn't look at it as moving the game per se. It was more about trying to find the right fit. So during this whole process, it is a long and something we have thought about and actually built out sort of a travel itinerary on what is most beneficial. And then you add in the fact that we want to make sure that we have a home crowd. And so knowing that the support's always been excellent in Columbus, and now there are some very unique and great options for games in newer stadiums, all sort of weigh into that decision. But when it comes down to it, we look at, the important matches, and certainly Mexico is an important match, but also Costa Rica being a very important match. And during the last cycle, we made the wrong decision at US Soccer and where we placed the game. And so knowing the importance of that game, because we had lost it last year, Columbus was just a great fit.
Thank you so much, Brian. And we'll go to Jacob Myers, Columbus Dispatch.
Hey, Brian, I'm Jacob at the Columbus Dispatch. Good to talk with you. Just what you mentioned, it being a better fit for Cincinnati. Obviously, they have a larger stadium, but is it more than that? Just take us a little more into why that was viewed as a better fit for that specific game.
Yeah, I didn't say a better fit. I think, there's, like I said, there are plenty of really interesting and high quality stadiums that provide great fields, the training site, the travel aspect to what we're trying to manage during a very, very important period. So those are really the factors that go into it. And like I said before, Mexico is an important game, of course, but so is the Costa Rica match and all home qualifiers. And so when we're building things out with this model, everything's taken into consideration. So, the fact that Columbus was always going to be a place that was on the top of a list for us to play home games shouldn't take away the fact that, it's not Mexico, because Costa Rica is a very important game for us also.
And did Columbus express interest in the Mexico game?
Yes, I believe so, amongst many, many others.
Sure.
Yeah,
I'm sure everyone did. Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
Thanks, Jacob. We'll go to Charlie Boehm, MLSsoccer.com.
Brian, thanks for your time today. When you were a player, having those games in certain locations to maximize the home field advantage was maybe a little easier in terms of the ticketing procedures. It seems like maybe the last cycle showed that in some cases, for example, Mexico fans are still managing to get in, even where you guys are trying to make it 100% pro-US crowd. So I'm wondering how you approach that matter, because it seems like a tricky one to get what you want in the modern sort of ticketing environment.
Yeah, this goes back a long way. Even back to the first time we played in Columbus in 2002. I think after that match, you heard Mexican fans saying, "We're just going to buy season tickets so we can actually get tickets for that match." I don't know if that ever happened, but really, when it comes down to making sure that we have a pro-US crowd, we trust our partnerships with the clubs that are hosting, and then add on the fact that we have a list of fans on our side now that continues to grow, where we can actually offer up, a sort of draw or a lottery situation. We feel more and more comfortable, but you're right. It is an important thing, and it's certainly part of the decision-making process to make sure that we do as much as we possibly can to guarantee that we have a pro-US crowd.
And a quick follow-up, are the clubs and venues that are competing for these games, are you guys getting like financial sort of components to that? Like, is it like a bidding war in a sense?
I don't know those things. I think that would have to go more to the commercial side. So I wouldn't want to speak out of turn. I know there is parts of bids that are involved, but I don't know what those if they're monetary or if they're anything to do with that, those sort of decisions.
Thank
So
you.
I'll come back to you on that one.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thanks. We'll go to Ori Bennett, our Massive Report.
Hey, Brian, good to talk to you. I'm Maury from the Massive Report. I work with Pat Murphy. I wanted to ask you a little bit about the state of Ohio as a whole, because obviously Costa Rica and Mexico games are going to be in the state as a whole, and these two world-class facilities in there too. Do you kind of see Ohio now having these two new stadiums as being a place where the United States team can just come and, have this home field advantage and be sort of a capital of soccer in this country, more so than before?
It's a good question. I think, soccer continues to grow in this country, and we see it with not only the amount of teams that are in MLS, but the support that they have. And then you look at the amount of new buildings and stadiums that have been put in place, whether they're training grounds or stadiums themselves. It's great to see. I think you can't deny the fact that, we've put two very important qualifiers in the state of Ohio, but it also has so much more to do with it. So I wouldn't want to single it out as the capital of soccer in this country, but certainly Ohioans have shown that they have a great support and they can fill out stadiums. So we're excited for that.
And then I guess a follow-up sort of outside of the hosting thing, of course, big game against Qatar tonight in the Gold Cup, with a sort of new squad stepping in for these Gold Cup games before qualifiers. How do you see that match playing out tonight against a really competitive team outside of CONCACAF that's obviously hosting the next tournament?
Sure. Yeah, it's gonna be a new challenge for us. Not having played Qatar, I think that's a factor. So there is a lack of familiarity. Having said that, we have a good understanding of who they are. They're a very talented group. They have some technical players. They're very good on transition. In transition. And so, it's going to be a really good challenge for us and a different challenge. So we're looking forward to tonight.
Thanks, Brian.
You bet.
So I'll go to Pat Murphy, Massive Report.
Brian, you've mentioned a couple times now the new stadiums across the country. How big of a factor was the fact that Columbus has Lowercom Field in getting this game, as opposed to maybe if it was just the old stadium that you guys were looking at?
I think when you look at it, it has a factor, especially the crowd noise now that, Lower.com Stadium has a roof. So that part definitely helps. We've seen it in other stadiums where that has a roof. But, if it was Crew Stadium, if you're asking me, would the decision have been different? I can't say that it would have. But certainly the amenities and the training field and the facility that the Crew have built is a factor. Greg actually went out to see it the weekend of the opening, had really high reviews and rated it very highly. And also, it's a new stadium, and we get a chance to create a new chapter, and we're looking forward to that.
Thanks, Pat. We'll go to Charles Baum, MLSsoccer.com.
Brian, you've been a part of this, both sides of this as a player and now as an executive. I want to get your sense of what the logistics are like for these 3-match windows that are coming up, which seems like a grind for everybody. And I wonder if you could give any insight onto how you guys are setting up the logistics of travel and home bases and that sort of thing. And Also, are the upcoming games, are you guys looking to do Guerra Fria in any of these cool weather months, maybe play in cold locations for a home field advantage?
Yeah, Charles, it's a great question. And it was a really large factor. And certainly, as I touched on in the beginning, we knew that it was going to be a daunting task, or it is going to be a daunting task. So, we've tried to take as much into consideration as possible, even building out, like I said, a platform that can help us make decisions on temperature and travel between one place to the next. And you have to add in, a good amount of our group is going to be flying in from Europe. So it is a lot of travel and a lot of turnaround. So it will be a factor. And so when we're working through those decisions, home bases, we talked about, do we want to just fly into one place, leave all our stuff, fly out, come back, train there, and then fly to our home game? And it tends to be, if we can minimize travel and minimize time where players are uncomfortable or in situations where they're not having the ability to rest and rehabilitate, then those things come into play. And so we're very much in the process of finalizing those details, but yes, we're going to try and make it as comfortable as possible and minimize as much travel as possible.
Great. Thank you so much. I think we have 2 minutes left on our schedule for this. So just last round, does anyone have a final question for Mr. McBride? Cool. Oh, yes, Mr. Rome, MLSsoccer.com.
Sorry, I'll take every minute I can. Brian, just one smaller one. Are you guys even considering artificial turf venues, and would those automatically involve laying over temporary grass?
Charles, yeah, at this point in time, we're not considering stadiums with artificial turf.
Thanks.
Sure.
Cool. We'll go last question to Patrick Murphy, Mass Report.
Yeah, Brian, not to belabor the Columbus Cincinnati, but as you can imagine, that's been a hot topic here. What factors went into both cities for those games? I know you touched on this a little bit, but specifically 2 biggest games, picking 2 cities so close together. I know some people outside of the state were disappointed. What factors went into these 2 specifically?
Well, I think, we talked about the travel, certainly. Weather does pay part of the conversation. And then, it really is about making sure that we provide the best solutions for our players. And, the training facility is of importance. The access sometimes is part of that decision, even though for most of our European players will have to take a connecting flight. And then, making sure that we have a pro-US crowd is a huge factor.
Great. Thank you all so much for joining us. For the members of our